Peace, peace. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. I see people already piling into the space. So welcome to another Shema Anu. Of course, I am Aki Antonio, and shout out to everyone who came in early. So peace, brother Christopher. Peace, Chief Yuya. Peace, Sister Kashia. Going off in the chat with the Hebrew. Yeah, give thanks for coming through. So yeah, we're here again at the end of another Shavua for Shabbat, moving into Shabbat. And it's getting dark much earlier. We're moving into the end of another year. So give thanks for that. Yeah, stay ready. Okay, so just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Peace, Sister Precious, Emma Precious. Of course, there's I don't know, I guess it's like up for Mythbusters at this point. But we're gonna acknowledge that there's a 20-second delay. Of course, we gotta open the space and give reverence to the Most High Yah, and giving thanks to Chief Yuya, who is the Chief Coordinator and Chief Jagna of our New Life Global Ministries, and the author of the text that we are pulling our reading from, which is the Anu Way, Volume 1. Yeah, there we go. Ain't no delay. Yeah, how long ago did you type that, Chief? So we usually start off our Shema with a condensed excerpt from Anu Way Foundations, which is the preface. And it goes as follows. This book is not to be read only once. Say it again. This book is not to be read only once. So it's not a novel. This is something that's to be studied. Read the words of this book of knowledge and wisdom out loud. Discuss the convictions of this work with your Anu brothers and sisters. Share this information with your people. This publication should be read daily. Every line of this book can be taken out of context and studied on the strength of its own potential. The truth is to be deliberated. And again, that is from our Chief Jagna, Chief Yuya Asan Anu. So, as soon as you said it, all right. All right, I can't dispute that. But we're continuing our chapter. We're still in family, as Sister Deidre likes to point out. We're still in family, and we're continuing. Turn off these notifications. We're continuing our discussion. Right, this is the final part. Yeah, let's get into it. I see a couple more people coming in. Peace, Sister Monero. Peace to the House of Bell. Ema Sequoia, top tier speakers. So this paragraph goes as follows, right? Children are the active expression of the love that exists between marital partners. When love binds individuals, it is a private experience. The production of offspring now sends that love event out into the world. Children are the fruit of a homestead. As we are told, a tree is known by the fruit that it bears. A family is known by the children that it bears. And I thought this was, so just type your response 20 seconds before you would have, and we're good. Break the time barrier. All right, we time traveling in the chat. Okay, but seeing Peace Cassie Derwin. Can't say that Chief said it. Peace Cassie Derwin. As we go through this, when we look at this paragraph here, we see that when we're building families and when we're having children, we're basically sending a manifestation of our connections, right? The chemistry that we've built up, or the lack thereof, leading up to this this active love, this basically marriage. There it is. I'm not gonna say when Chief typed that, but yeah. So you have this active love, right? And Chief did a segment that said that you're in active love, no matter what happened between your parents, whether they're still together, whether they're apart. you are not a mistake. You're an act of love, because love is the congregative force in the universe. It's the thing that brings forces together. So this act of love is deliberate, and it is an act of marriage. Just putting it out there. So you're already spouses. And the first question that I wanted to ask when I was looking at this paragraph was, what will you produce? This is what I asked myself. What are you going to produce? What's going to come from you? Um, what kind of children will you bring forth based on what's moving in your cipher now? And part of that is kind of concealed from you until you get to know who you're mating with. And this is why it's so important to go through that courtship process to understand what you're mixing, right? So I think when I got my first apartment, I learned the wonderful cleaning applications of vinegar. And so I was like, shoot, I should mix it with some stuff. I should mix it with some stuff to see if I can make it more powerful. And I almost mixed it with bleach, not realizing that it was going to create not just a volatile liquid, but it's going to start. I'm glad I Googled it. It was going to start create a poisonous gas. And I was just like, these two things, this is strong, let's put it together, see what we get. I didn't realize I almost poisoned myself. So it's very important to understand what it is that you're mixing. And this is a question that I wanted to pose in the chat, right? What kind of fruit will your homestead produce? And this is also coming off of the fact that you're getting together with a certain mission and purpose in mind. And when you're getting together, both of you should already be in motion. You should already be working towards, there it is, chlorine gas. Yeah. Give thanks for that, Chief. Yeah, I would have made a chlorine gas. No bueno. So you're basically coming together to create something that multiplies or advances both of your missions. You're both coming together to reach your highest elevation, right? And your children are here to go even further than that. But if you're going south and your mate is going north, then you're going to create confusion. You know what I mean? Especially if you're so stagnant, or you're dragging your feet on your purpose, and you don't even realize you're supposed to be going north, and they don't even realize they're supposed to be going south because you're not moving. So that's another aspect of it that can cause a lot of confusion. So I just wanted to pose that to the chat, and I'm going to continue on with the first sentence, as we do, sentence by sentence. So the first sentence says, children are an active expression of the love that exists between marital partners, right? And similar to what I was just speaking to, this is an active expression. So you're not saying, I love you, or you mean the world to me, or whatever. The truth of peace, QC, the truth of your relationship and the truth of what you are, it comes through whether or not you wanted to admit to it. Oh, peace there, Robertson. I didn't see you. Whether or not you want to admit to these things being a part of your psyche, or whether or not you've done the self-exploration, it still manifests. It's still going to come through. And just because you don't want to admit that something exists doesn't mean that it's not there. So it's best to know what you're dealing with. And on that note, there was this paragraph reminded me of a section in Solutions for Dysfunctional Family Relationship. Is this Sister Quanda? You incognito? QC, you a superhero now? Anyway, solutions for dysfunctional family relationships. And this is a segment that deals with the offspring that you have, right? And it deals with child rearing. So this is page 56, in case you have your copy and you wanted to read along. And it's the last paragraph. And it says, our children and mates are often the only ones on the planet that can bring us to our lowest of lows or highest of highs. They are typically the reason for our greatest sacrifices, which links us to them in a greater measure compared to those we choose to associate with without altering much of ourselves. With that in mind, parents should design the proper scenario for children to emerge from. Simply put, children should be planned. Discussions surrounding child rearing should occur during the courting stage. This is just one of the reasons for a properly designed courting routine. There's nothing worse than finding out that you and your mate have opposing visions for your progeny after that progeny has already been created. To this end, it's important to research the conditions that each partner was reared under themselves. Even in cases where an individual decides to make a concerted effort to improve or counteract their own childhood, whether dysfunctional or functional, it's still key to be made aware of what the childhood consisted of in terms of parental techniques and rearing methodologies. More often than not, the mango does not fall far from the roots. All right, so as we could see there, it's very important that we plan our children, that we plan our families, that we plan our unions. And one of the, right, you forgot the password to your other Gmail. Okay, I got you. QC, won't give out your alter ego. Okay, we got a response. Sister Kashia says the fruit or child yielded will be directly reflective of the knowledge yeda. Oh, yeled. My bad, I'm reading in English. The fruit or child yeled will be directly reflective of the knowledge yeda that I have correctly received. I will produce a reflection that is righteous, proof of being law-abiding of the Most High and Anu. Okay, represent. Peace, Sister Deidre. So that's an aspect of that planning, right? In order to reflect that knowledge, Sister Gishia would have to actually know her mate. She would actually have to have received what it is that he wants to give her. And that's what she's going to produce, right? She produces from what she receives from him. And also, because women are water, there's going to be an aspect of what she's absorbed, which is why we need covering. And because because of the way that children are reared or raised rather in this part of the world and in the culture that we reside in, there's not a lot of planning. It's actually, again, whatever Western society tells you to do the opposite. It's actually encouraged that you don't plan your relationships, that you don't plan your children, you don't plan which families you're going to be joining together. None of that. Just hook up, basically. The wilder and more mysterious, the better. It's like Russian roulette, high stakes Russian roulette. Chief Yuya says the fruit of Mesu Yuya is the awareness of a spiritual life. My fruit is my image and my likeness. Our fruit is nutritious, detoxing, life-giving, pleasant to see and taste, and grows in abundance. Yeah. So we have an answer from both the feminine and masculine perspective, right? You have someone who's Sister Kashia, who's going to be law-abiding and producing based on the knowledge that she's received. And you have Chief Yuya, who's determining what his house is going to produce, and this is very important in terms of the man having the plan and knowing what the house is about. So moving on, right? The next sentence says, when love binds individuals, it is a private experience. I think I read that one. Uh, the production of offspring now sends that love event out into the world. And this is where we see the effects. And it reflects today's mathematics, knowledge, wisdom, all being born understanding. That understanding is the aspect that you can see, and children are going to tell the truth. Like, they haven't learned how to lie yet when they get here. So when they come through, they're going to reflect what you both are in tandem and what your bloodlines um, reflect, not just the good parts, but the sicknesses as well, which is another reason to do your research. It's another reason to say, okay, I know that I've had trauma, and pretty sure you did too, because of where we grew up. I've met your parents, you've met my parents, willfully. Willfully, it wasn't like a random fling. And we understand that there's some dysfunction there. So there's no way that our child is just going to come through pure, like a blank slate. I think there's a German philosopher, Jean-Jacques Rousseau or Rossio, and he was like, the children are a blank slate, and that's not true. Children come through with the qualities, not only the ones that they bring from the spiritual realm, but the qualities that are in your blood, the blood that you give them, which makes it a very, very it's not a simple thing that you're doing. Like, sometimes we forget that bringing a child into this world is not trivial. Is very serious business, and we have to approach it as such. So I have another question for you all, and that is, are you able to? This is for those of you who have children already, right? Are you able to identify the traits your children inherited from you, and which ones they inherited from their other parent, right? So I'm gonna leave that there. For me, I look, physically, I'm basically my father. The way I walk, the way that I speak, the way that I hold myself, even my wiry frame, all of it is from him. Even down to sleeping patterns, work patterns, um, a sort of no nonsenseness, and the corny jokes. Yeah, all of that is from him, right? My creativity definitely comes from my mother's side. My father's more orderly, but my mother could make, like, she could go to a dump and make a palace. Like, she could just make stuff out of stuff. I don't know how she does it. So that's an example of what I mean by, seeing which traits you get from which side. You know, both of them are good looking, so lucked up there. But yeah, those are some of the traits that you can see, and those traits are reflected also in they're reflected also in their bloodlines. My mother's side is much more it's more like business and pleasure, both of them. My father's side is very business like and straight to the point, and my mother's side is like very family oriented. Not that my father's side isn't, but family gatherings and get-togethers, um, partying, and the artistic side. My grandfather was a musician. Um, yeah, very creative side. My mother's side. So there again, you can see these traits coming together, but the negatives come together too, right? Because sometimes my father's side can be too rigid, and sometimes my mother's side can be a little too loose. So that's a responsibility that I and my siblings have in terms of balancing that out. Um, Chief Yuya says the production of offspring is the explosion of an entire planet. So that love event is like the bursting of a seed filled with earth material, but also cosmic dust that disperses into infinitum. Yeah, yeah, that's powerful. That what you said just reminded me of this. I think it was IBM who put it out in like the 80s or late 70s, and it was called Powers of 10. And what they did was they chose like a single spot on a field, like on a couple was having a picnic, and they would just zoom out by powers of 10, and it just keep zooming out, and you can just see the universe expanding, even though you're at the same point. And then they would go as far as they could, as far as they had explored or were able to see with their equipment at that time, and then they stopped and they zoomed in by powers of 10. And they went beneath his skin and into the DNA, past all of that. And you get far enough and everything looks the same. Space is, that black void. You go in far enough and you see that black void again. So it's very interesting when you see all of that coming together. That's what I also thought of when Chief did the breakdown on atomic, what was it? Atomic Nation. I think that was the name of it. It was a Shabbat presentation. Oh, peace, Brother Lo. So Brother Lo says, peace. The fruit my homestead will produce are seekers of knowledge, seers who can see far beyond my own sight. Yeah, good. We need people with vision. Chief Yuya says, my children are schemers like me. They're always talking about Baba I have a plan. They're all sweet, like the women I choose. I'm I'm not sweet and kind, but I mate with those who are. Yeah, you do need that balance. you know, you need someone who can like you talk it up. If I say something, we're not gonna get anywhere. TGS says I saw those films. There were two versions. One that came out in the late '60s, and the other in the late '70s. Okay, yeah, it was super interesting. I didn't know it was more than one. I only knew about the one. I gotta look for the other one. But yeah, you can identify both those. Oh, top tier speaker said yes, I'm able to identify those traits on both sides. Yeah, it's real interesting when you start exploring it, especially when you meet family members or you meet people who you didn't realize were your family. Like there was a mason who we worked with on one of our construction sites during a contract. You can't tell me that he's not our cousin. He can't tell me that. My brother and I, we just call him Cuz. He looks exactly like our grandfather, who, he was a musician. So, yeah, you do the maths. Um, so the production of Offspring sends that love event into the world. And, that brings us to the title of the segment, right? Children are the fruit of a homestead. So when I think about bearing fruit, you have to have that seed first. And Chief broken this down during that Bereshit series, and we really stopped and focused on that line. Each tree or each fruit contained within it, seed after its own kind, which bore fruit after its own kind. Right. So you're not bearing fruit that's not like you. So you can. Chief had also touched on this during his mating segment, right? Series. You can't produce something that's not inside of you already. So if you and your mate swear up and down that you're goody two shoes, and you birth a rapist or a serial killer, and you don't know where it came from, then that's because you didn't really, delve into your bloodline, or even you didn't analyze what you were taking in and what you were adding to your blood, because that's another thing. You have your, you have your ancestors, and you have your traits that you bring to the table, but you also have what you allow those children to be exposed to throughout their development. So you're adding another wild card into the mix. You don't know what they're going to be receptive to. And part of that is also not knowing what's going on in your bloodline. TVUS says there's a book too, Powers of 10, a book about the relative size of things in the universe and the effect of adding another zero. I have it. It's great for alternative thinking. Yeah. I think the video that I saw was probably based on that book, because there was almost the exact terminology. The effect of adding another zero. Brother Lowe the Scholar says, second answer. I would say my children will be my children will be weirdos. Like, they just have their own way of doing things that people just can't comprehend, but it makes sense to them. And don't forget good memory. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing. That's like, I got a good memory. Like, it's weird. I got both their memories. I got a short-term memory for stuff that I need to know for right now from my father, but also a long-term memory that's like more somatic from my mother. Like, if a song plays, an old song, she's like, "Oh, I remember this. This song played on my first day of high school when I first met my best friend." She's got a lot of best friends. I first met my best friend, and we shared a peanut butter sandwich. So she'll tell you all those details, those somatic details. Um, and I kind of learned how to hack that when I was kind of young, because I was like, why do I remember some things and not others? And my long-term memory is like linked to a somatic experience, and my short-term memory helps me to remember like details. It's very weird that how I had to learn how to finesse both of them, and I'm still getting the hang of it. So sometimes I could meet someone and they tell me their name like 6 times, and then they leave the room and like, what's his name again? you know, or they'd be like, "You don't remember me? You met me 3 days ago. All right, nice to meet you again." So yeah, she's not good with time. I'm not good with people like that. I had to learn it. So I have one more question for you all, right? And then we can head out, and rest up. What does the quality of what you're currently producing say about your future offspring? What are you building right now? What are you putting out right now? And what sort of standards do you have for that? That'll help you to gauge, whether or not you're even ready to consider having children. Are you able to complete tasks? Do you complete goals that you set for yourself? Do you set a goal and then halfway through it, you realize that you had no idea what you were doing, and now you got to wing it? Are you a consummate planner, and are you able to work collaboratively? The tongue is heavy tonight. Work collaboratively with others, meaning you and another person is going to be in this child's life, and you're not always going to be around one another, but you have to be firm on what it is that this child is going to be and what they're not going to be, right? So how do you do it? You gotta have a certain way of operating. If you're not operating in a certain way, then in an efficient way, then you're not really going to have the results that you think you're going to have, and that usually comes about when you're going off of wishful thinking. When you plan based on wishful thinking, we can do this and we can do that, and we can do this and that. And then when you start, it's like, oh, I didn't realize this would be so hard. I didn't realize you needed this. I didn't realize I needed that skill. You look at it and you actually plan through it. This is why you can, discuss it during the courtship phase. And your compliment or the person you're courting with may be like, but how does that look? How's that gonna work? I say, I don't know. Didn't think I'd get this far. TPS says home is where the best of your family. The children are the aggregate of the best ideas of the kingdom. They are the mental process that must progress to become part of the larger consciousness. Top tier speaker says the children got my silliness and animated personality and genuineness. They got their father's athleticism and telling jokes on the fly. Yeah. Sister Kashia said, I'm currently putting out what my covering and culture has given me to be as shiny as I can be. The goal is to align with an Anu man and continue that faithfulness. Okay, so that's what you're currently putting out. What about the more concrete, right? We were speaking about abstract versus concrete. What about the more concrete things that you put out in terms of the work that you do, the quality of work that you do? Simple as running an errand properly. Do you leave the house and halfway up the street you realize you didn't bring your mask? Now 10 years later you're yelling at your son like, you forgot to carry your jetpack. Always remember to carry your jetpack. You didn't put any fuel in the jetpack. Is it going to be something like that? And that also, it also works as a checklist as well, because just because you work through something doesn't mean your children won't have a predisposition towards it. You may have been the first generation who had actually broken a cycle, but you have to make sure that it's thoroughly broken. So that might be something that you have to actively counteract, even after your child is born. Chief Yuya says, based on what I'm currently producing, my future offspring need more support. I have spent too much time correcting errors in adults while neglecting the family launch pad for future seeds. Yeah, that can be a real hindrance when you're focusing so much on pouring into those who are outside the homestead, that you don't really have I'd say you don't really have the energy to properly channel into what it is that you're looking to do. Everyone has different standards, and based on those standards they require a different level of energy investment. And what we've seen from what you produce, Chief, like those standards are pretty high. They may require higher levels of energy output that we could even imagine. So I can conceptualize what it is you're saying based on my experience with burnout and having stuff that I need to get done, but not necessarily having the support that I need to work it effectively. It's just spreading yourself too thin and not giving things the attention that they deserve. Y'all are both hilarious, sister. That's Kima Sequoia. Y'all are both hilarious. Yeah. Alva Randy comes out of nowhere with it, but actually you're both kind of you hit everyone with the left hook. It's the left hook that you don't see coming. You could be having a serious conversation and then a joke just comes out of nowhere and catch you like a gut punch. Yeah, you're both hilarious, Emo, Sequoia. So I see you both in that one. You got the funny stories, and Barbara MGC has the funny one-liners and impressions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Emo Sequoia confirmed it right on. Peace, Hot Chandra Joy. Shmoney, DJ Shmoney. Okay, I think that's everyone's responses. I like to ask that last question. Like, do any of you have any questions? Based on what we've covered so far, do any of you have any questions or observations? Um, things that you may have seen in this aspect, because we all grew up in neighborhoods around other children, and sometimes it's easy to see what a person's home life is like based on the way that they behave, and sometimes you wouldn't believe what it's like because they may be so aware of it. I remember growing up around a lot of people who their home life was miserable, and you wouldn't know it because they were always the liveliest one in the classroom. They cracked the most jokes. They were like a class clown. Even the teacher couldn't say anything because they were laughing too. And then you walk home with them one day. Like if I wanted to borrow some homework or a video game, and they open the front door, leave it open, and you hear their interaction with their parents, and it's like, where'd that come from? Sometimes people try to project, especially children, they do their best to project the opposite of what's going on in home. Sister Kashia says more concrete would be to make sure I conduct myself according to the expectations of my covering, making sure he knows where I am, coming to him with problems and concerns, and not go within. I will this with you, man, with more concrete. More or less, it's much warmer than colder. Chief UL says, yes, high standards chiefing is a family legacy. I built Jagnas like a factory assembly line that has been forsaken for some years, but I'm gearing up for the next round of my little chiefsters. All right. We got the next football team. Shanda Joy says, my understanding will be joyful and full of ideas. Sorry for the late reply. Which one are you responding to? That one was, we need some more concrete with that one. Peace, brother Vermont. Peace. Yeah, I'm gonna wait for Shanda Joy to get all the mortar mix. And okay, Chief, you just said, what fruit do families produce who have reached their childbearing quota? Okay, what do you mean by childbearing quota? Is this like a self-imposed quota, like we're only gonna have 3 children, or is this like we should have stopped at 3 children? I've seen both. I'll wait for that response too. I'm gonna wait for that 20-second delay. But yeah, I've seen both. I've seen people who can stop them, who would stop themselves at a certain point, and they were like, you would always have a wife making a joke like, I ain't having no more children, or the father would be like, I'm not having any more children, or 3 is enough. You would have them making comments like that, and it may be coming from that understanding that, all right, the third one was maybe pushing it, and there may be others where there's 8 children running around, and the first 2, like, you could tell from the hand-me-downs, the first 2 got some good clothes, and the younger ones are like, they're wearing those clothes. They're wearing the hand-me-downs because the parents couldn't afford any more clothes. They're wearing their brother's. The brother been out of school for like, I don't know, 6-7 years, and they're wearing the same shoes. They're sharing the same shoes. Hand-me-downs are not to say a clear sign that the parents should have stopped, but there are signs that maybe you necessarily haven't been able to provide anything new for that particular child. So they got to share shoes, they got to share shirts or pants, they got to share jackets. And what you could see though is clothes ain't crisp anymore. That red shirt is pink because it's so faded. Um, but yeah, she said maybe a football team because I got too many rappers and singers who want to kickbox all day. I'm about tired of all this noise and getting jumped every time I walk in the house. All right, too much hot, yeah. All right, so you got a whole football team coming. Oh, I'm still, I still like that name, the New Jersey Silverbacks or the New Jersey Wolves. Either one works. Or you might have both. They might go up against each other in the Super Bowl. Who knows? Battle of the century. Sister Kashia said, I would like to know the answer to that as well. I do not know. I think that was when I asked Chief about that quota. Um, Top tier speaker says, I think the fruit families are to produce is generational wealth, but I'm not 100% sure. Sham Joy says, LOL, my children will have a sense of humor and compassion. They will also have an inclination on how to evolve things. All right, that's a little better. Yeah, and that I don't want to say the vagueness is a good thing, but you're leaving room for them to wiggle in. Chief Yuya says, example. Okay, the example is a family planned and has a capacity for 7 children. They reach the mark, and maybe even the children are now grown and have exited the home. Do they revel in old fruit, or are there alternatives? Hmm, that's a good example. That's a good question. Um, their flexibility would probably depend on how they did with the first 7. The first 7 may be out of the house, but they may be raggedy, you know, as opposed to a family that has had 7 and those 7 are like Sequoia said earlier, they're that generational wealth. They've gone on to produce good fruit as well. And because they produce that wealth, they don't necessarily lean on their parents anymore. They might even, give back to their parents. Their parents may be like, we can actually help another child, you know, and that child, whew, that would be like, I could just imagine you growing up, both your parents are stable, all of your siblings are stable, even your children are like, I mean, even your siblings' children are like the best uncles and aunties, or who knows, you may be growing with them like they're your cousins, and they've been getting all of the good wisdom that the parents have been given to them. That would be a cool scenario. I would love to see the result of that sort of scenario. But yeah, I think their options are they create their own options based on how they did with the first 7. That would be my response to that question. Um, oh yeah, New Jersey Silverbacks. Yeah, yeah, you definitely have wolves and gorillas and some gazelle daughters. Yeah, man, all good. Does the childbearing quota include women who are enabled or maybe within a certain age? Mm, I would say it kind of would, based on the definition of quota. But she gave an example of what he was talking about. But that's a different type of scenario that we could explore. What if you do have? I think it was like Samuel's mother, right? In First Samuel, She was like barren. Her womb was closed, so she couldn't have any children. And her husband had um, two women. He had her and another sister. So in that case, the other sister was able to bear children, but she was like she was favored, but she couldn't have children, right? Um, and of course, she prayed and she dedicated that child to the Most High, and he came through and anointed King David, but also King Saul. But yeah, that quota could include a quota could include women who are unable to um, have children or are of a certain age where they're beyond that point. But you could just get other women. You know, that doesn't really cap off the quota. Um, QC. Yeah, I'm not gonna give out your government. Sister QC says my current qualities will produce little bossy finesse talkers, silly creative, a lot of fire and sensitivity. Yeah, we gotta work on that. We gotta work on that. That could go either way. Um, what would be old fruit? What do you mean by old fruit? Sister QC. Yeah. Sister Kashia says, do you have more children continuously to fill that quota as the children age out to make sure the 7 mark is already hit? If the others are out successfully and made it, beginning their own branch. Um, we're actually getting into this in the next Shema. I can't remember who was up next. I'm not sure if it was. I think it might be Sister Moksha and Sister Manera. Y'all could correct me if I'm wrong. But we're gonna be getting into family structures, and that could definitely be approached in that. But I think it's an aspect of your family structure when you talk about the children who are already out and building their own branches, and whether or not you want to add on to the branch that you've already established. That's something that is between the two mates. I don't see why not. You know, why or why not is up to the the head, basically, what it is that we're willing to sustain. Um, Sister Shamda Joy says, I think the families who reach their quota could help other families in their community. Also true. Yeah, yeah, that's true as well. Even if you've reached your quota, there's still a lot of children running around, and not only are you helping by having done your job properly, but you can also help by assisting other parents in what it is that they should do. And they can even see from example, right? We got another one right here. So they're about the same age as your child, and you can see what it is that we do with them. You can see the regimens that we put them through. You can see their study habits. You can see their work ethic and what it is they produce based on what it is that they're learning. All of that helps. All of that helps. Um, Chief Yuya to Shanda Joy says, your children will be silly and have that snicker laugh like you. I'm going to have my current children wake them in the middle of the night and do a scared straight program on them. Oh man. Yeah, I could see that. I could see Chief you doing that. Bust a drop squat. Just roll them up like a roll them up like a burrito. Throw them in the back of the barn. Oh, great response. Okay, give thanks, Chief. Sister QC. Oh, this is to what Sister QC said about old fruit. Chief Julia says old fruit might be the children who are no longer under your homestead authority, so they are no longer on the vine. Okay. All right. Chief Julia says, that's right, Chandler Joy. You're going to the Kindunga. I am the Kindunga. Kindunga. There she go retracting stuff. I don't know what y'all talking about. Head will burn those current dysfunctions away, QC. That's the thing about in the Elohim's image and likeness. It's all a joint work, but you're preparing by being scrubbed of those blockages now. Yes, very true. Very true. I saw her up there. Oh. See, I didn't get to see the deleting stuff. Yeah. We talk about that. Very cool. We can talk about it again. And reveal your government. But you know what I'm talking to, QC. Yeah. Let me light up that QC signal shining in the sky now. But anyway, it's Shabbat, so can't fight crime tonight. Yeah, I saw up there deleting. Y'all better say it with your chest. Sister Kashia says, right, if the homestead is set for 7 and 3 are out and building on their own, wouldn't that leave room for 4 children to be cleared? The homestead is set for them. Top tier speaker said they can become parents of orphans. Also true. Yeah. With that, is a parent no longer a parent if a child is no longer under their authority? Does not the son still fall under the authority of the patriarch until that blessing is passed down? Yeah, it is. It's funny. I was just building on this with someone that in the West, people try to rush their children out as early as possible with no type of preparation. Like the world will prepare you for what you need to be. So get out my house, and don't call me. Is that sort of thing. As opposed to actually going through various stages of parenthood. Both of you, various stages of parenthood and adulthood. You have a baby, then you have small children, then you have preteens, then you have adults and young adults, then you have grown adults, then you have adults with children or adults with spouses, and you have adults with children. And then you got grandchildren now. So each step is like another rites of passage that you have to go through. And it's not like the Western perspective where you do something and then it's one and done. Everything is like a scale, and you graduate. You graduate and you reach different levels. And as you go to different levels, those that come under you, you're giving them game. And the game isn't just for them. It's good enough to where you've made sure they got it, so now they can give game to those who come after them. And they're improving on the game. They're not just keeping it stagnant and just repeating what you said. So yeah, you don't stop becoming a parent. Tracking, Chief. Okay. Agreed. Sister QC, agreed, Chief. Rubber dub dub. I'm thankful for the scrub. Okay. I said, whoa, I don't want no smoke. I simply didn't mention Chief when I said thank you, so I deleted it to add him properly. You could have left it there. Give me that. Could have left that there. Yeah, let everybody see you made a mistake. You pressed enter too early. And it's no big deal. Big whoop. Want to fight about it? Sister Kashia says, right, those children do not have to be of the loins, reclaimed and renamed, as Chief has said. Sister Kashia, my math was not mathing. I realized room for 3 additional children. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, we all make mistakes. And that's right, Sister QC. Chief Julia says Black Hebrew superheroes always taking days off. That's crazy. We need non-denominational superheroes. My Latino brothers and sisters take no days off. They need to be the new Justice League. No need to delete mistakes according to QC. Show those errors. Being perfect, it's okay. Exactly. You know, we're gonna get you for that simply anyway. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't need to get on them because I told you about that today. Yeah, but we're like almost an hour in, you know. Say, oh man, okay, yeah, yeah. You try to dig yourself out of a hole, you know, but you're digging, you know. Just put the shovel down, get out the hole while it's still shallow. Um, but yeah, yeah, you know, children are no joke, and we should approach child rearing and child having um all of them. We should approach child rearing and, you know, having children with a level of sobriety. You know, think of how much you go through mentally when you pick a school. You know, you say I want to go to college. You know, what college is right for me? Do they have the right alumni? Do they have good internship programs? Um, are they accredited? You ask all these questions, but you see someone drunk to a point where they're not in their right mind. Like that one, give me that one. You know, you just do what you do. Soft out there, peace, soft out there. Shalom, brother Antonio. As a grandparent, I should be laying a spiritual and cultural foundation for my grandchildren. What would that look like? Soft out there. What would that spiritual and cultural foundation look like? Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what you have in mind. All of them. But yeah, it's interesting to see the comments that came through and the different avenues that, you know, different people have taken us down. You know, all this love is waiting for you, sisters. Talking about Sister QC, 1982, the barge all day. You're gonna get this word. Love me in a special way. Uh, Brother Ramon says, once an Anu man brings forth a family, he now has made a lifetime commitment to the building and evolution of his children and the children of the community. That's very true. That's very true. Actually, that commitment starts before you even, you know, decide who your mate is going to be. All of these things that you produce comes from your mind first. And as the head of the house, everything has to filter through your mind. You know, like Chief had mentioned in that Atomic Beginnings, your mind is basically like the final gatekeeper for anything that goes in or out of your house. So when you have these children, they gotta know, you know, going back to that courtship piece, they gotta know how your mind works and what's acceptable to you, you know, because you set the standard. And that standard is gonna show with that commitment that you're speaking about. Chief Yuya says women do not lay spiritual or cultural foundations. They reflect, manage, maintain, and embellish them, right? Yeah. I'm still waiting on what you had in mind, soft earlier. Yeah, but that's why I asked that question. You're not building anything or laying that foundation. You're enhancing it. Sister Kashia, that's my jam. Hey, y'all, anyway. But yeah, man. Soft audience is setting an example and creating the right environment. When I spend time with them, exposing them to the standards I got, chief. Um, Setting an example is a good way to go. Creating the right environment, again, that comes from your mate. You manage the environment that he creates, and you expose them to the standards that you got from him. The greatest era of the Dabaj. Okay. um yeah, that's pretty much all I got. So any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them in the comment section below. Give thanks to you all for spending this time, and willfully you had a strong and moving into that internal space now. Is that example reflective of what their fathers have directed them to be, or directed to them, or what you think is best? Yeah. That's why it has to come from that masculine. Like I was saying earlier, to Aki Vermon's point, the man is the gateway in and out of the home. He determines what goes into the house. He determines what is produced based on what is filtered through his mind and the standards that he's received from the Most High. Oh, you're more than welcome, Sister Kashio. All right, I'm head out. I don't have a ceremonious way to end these lives, but I give thanks to all of you for your participation, for showing up. Give thanks for the build, of course, and you all have a good rest, a good day of internal exploration, and yeah, Shabbat shalom, peace and good rest to you.